This podcast was brought to you in association with Bloomsbury, India.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Kitabi Karwan podcast. We have with us today Supriya Paul, the co founder of Josh Talks and the editor of All You Need Is Josh, a collection of short stories, tales, and real life stories of people who have inspired everyone else in the world to take up paths which they would never have dared to. Stories of real life courage, inspiration, and everything else that could drive the human spirit. Without giving anything else away, let's jump right to it.
Hi Supriya, welcome to the Kitabi Karwan podcast.
Absolutely.
And it's such a pleasure to have you. Like such a pleasure to have such a inspirational person, someone who's actually beyond inspirational, someone who's inspired hundreds and thousands of people across the country and probably the globe to have on this podcast. So Supriya, my first question to you is very simple, and it's kind of a traditional question we ask on the Kitabi Karwan podcast. Uh, Given that you're an internet personality as well and people know a lot about you, tell us something about you that we won't find from the blurb of your book or by just searching you, looking you up on the internet. Something that's I don't know might give people a
Yeah. So,
better insight into you.
yeah, I think like one of the things. So, firstly, thank you for having me here. And I think one of the things that people don't know about me is that I'm a super big nerd. And I've been a nerd my entire life. Josh kind of happened by chance, and it was a very unconventional career for me to choose.
Yeah,
But I am the geekiest person that you can ever know. And the second thing would obviously be that I've been fond of reading and writing my entire life. So my one of my goals when I was in class six was actually to be the chief editor of a magazine, and that's really when I started writing. And it's great to see that now I've kind of like completed the circle and was a part of our first book. Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna take you up on that geeky nerd challenge because I'm a nerd myself. So like probably we can do
Awesome.
a nerd off challenge. But this is great to know. I mean,
Yeah.
like it's great to know that you like to read and you like to write as well because uh unlike all other episodes that we've generally had, you're one of our first editors on the podcast, and that's just a general different prospect altogether. So and that's actually leads me to a very interesting area that I wanted to talk to you about, right? Because a lot of the content that goes out through Josh or the stories that you narrate are either through video or through your app or through your different platforms like Instagram, social media. That you have far better reach in terms of what you want to achieve, right? So, what gave
Yeah.
you the idea for this book, edit and put them into stories? I mean, you clearly can put out a lot more stories and cover them in a far more holistic manner online. Why this? What drove you towards this offline mode?
Yeah, I think so. From a personal point of view, I have been someone who loves physical books, and just the value of having something on my shelf or having something that I can gift to someone in person means a lot to
Right,
me. So even in
right,
terms of people who join us at the organization, it's always like there is a concept of gifting a book whenever there is
right,
some kind of a
right,
challenge,
right,
and that's just because of personally how fond I am of the physical version. And although
right,
now there is Audible, and then I also do use the Kindle. So but there's just something about having a physical presence that can't be taken away. And when we thought of like what is it that we can leave our viewers with, and what is like an embodiment of Josh that they can take home, and that's really where the idea of the book came across.
right,
That how can we capture these stories in a different form, and then it's always there on your bedside. It's something that you can look at any time of the day or night, and just something you can
right.
turn to for quick inspiration without having to go and log in onto our
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
I completely get it. That's why I fist pumped, like because I'm a huge like physical book nerd myself. Like the only time I use my Kindle is when I'm traveling because I can't like carry like
Yeah.
4 or 5 books.
Same. Yeah.
Yeah. So although I've grown like really fond of audiobooks, but like physical books for the win. And I completely get it. Like that that's such a beautiful gesture that you carry out at your organization, and that's I think a lot of people and organizations who are listening can take away from this. That I think gifting books is, and I personally my belief is that a book is a far more permanent medium than anything else that you would have seen. I mean, today we're reading books that were written back in 1600, 1700. It's lasted 300 years.
Absolutely.
As amazing as the internet is, I mean, it's enabling us to do this. It's you never know what kind of permanence the internet might hold, but books do carry forward with that permanence. So, so Supriya, while like I mean, I would now I'd like to focus on the process of this editing. How did you go about, selecting the stories that have to go into it? Because I mean, I loved the book. I mean, I went through it and I was like, some of the stories were just like they actually shook me to in a very nice way. Like, that, oh, okay, great that people can move past certain things and move into certain directions. But and the bit that I liked the most was the fact that not all of them are your famous personalities, not people you would have directly heard of, right? I mean, everyone knows
Yeah.
about them or heard them, and then it's very easy to just like cut, paste, and put their stories out there. But these stories are genuine stories. People wouldn't have generally heard of. So, like, what was the story selection process like? Like, I mean, how did you go about choosing these 30, 35 odd people stories that you wanted to go and put into
Yeah.
writing?
So interesting enough, when we started out, we used to do these physical events. And
Right.
when you're curating content for a physical event, you have to look at it in terms of a day, right? Like we used to do a conference from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Right.
And the difficult part about that event or conference was deciding who's going to speak first and who's going to go in second, who's going to be before break, who's going to be after break.
Right.
And we used to pick out themes so that the person, like a viewer or somebody who's attending the event, never gets lost. If you've just had lunch and you've come back into the hall, there'll be a speaker who's going to blow your mind away with his or her story.
Right.
And I've kind of used that similar process of structuring a physical event into this book, where we've tried to ensure that across the three divisions of the book, there are stories that like grip you throughout, and stories that leave you with, say, a conversation starter before you move into the second part of the book. But in terms of how we actually shortlisted speakers, one was that we're there in 8 different languages, so we've tried to ensure that there are speakers who got covered on our regional languages as well, and the transcript is of course in English and English. So that was the first thing. The second was that we've tried to pick out people from various different career streams, so whether it's entrepreneurship or somebody who's gone through, who's a victim of sexual abuse and now is using that experience to talk or propagate about self-love, like someone like Natasha Noel, or whether it's a girl who's had a very difficult childhood being the gender that she is, or if it's somebody who's just a complete innovator. So the idea was that if we actually cover the diversity of what we stand for as Josh in the form of one book, but our idea here is also that this isn't the first and only version. Like this is
Right.
just the start, and we want to continue to take out different editions of the same,
Right.
featuring our speakers along the way.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's quite an interesting thing to be taking forward. I mean, it's always nice to be reading about people who can inspire you in across different formats, right? But so something that I particularly felt while reading the book, because there were, as I mentioned, in complete opposite of what I spoke earlier about, there were a couple of people who I have at least heard of or somehow have
Yeah.
interacted with, right? And so something that I particularly felt was, uh, how did you decide to condense their stories, right? Because obviously these are people who've lived like complete full lives and have had a
Hmm.
varied set of experiences. And obviously they, when they're writing it themselves, like narrating it themselves, they'll put a lot more thought and a lot more detail into what the kind of speak process they're speaking about. But as an editor, how do you decide on, particularly with like people who've had such topsy-turvy lives and such eventful lives, which event to probably, like,
Hmm.
I don't know, edit out of the write-up that they submitted to you, or you know which one is something that you can do away with? Because I think across the book, maybe every person gets like 4 or 5 pages, maybe six to an extent.
Yeah.
Like that's the rough average
Yeah.
that I've picked up on. And although like these were complete stories, I sometimes felt that maybe there could have been a bit more, or there definitely, like, at least for a few people I knew that they have some more context to their stories, right? So I mean, how did you go about doing that?
Yeah. So I think what we've tried to do is that even if you look at a talk, right, that's there on the platform, we only have between 12 and 20 minutes to actually
Right.
showcase the story of a person. And anybody who's lived 30-35 years, like condensing that into 20 minutes is a super tedious task. But it's done in a way where the highlights or the one message that the speaker wants to give across is carried through. And
Right.
similarly, even in the book, the idea was that the essence of the talk, or the one message that they wanted to leave the viewer with and now the reader with, is carried through. And only the aspects of their life that kind of pertain or reinforce that message are there in the book as well. So whether it's someone like say Ankur Warikoo, right? He's
Right.
had so many different roles. He was somebody who was planning on studying astrophysics to
Yeah.
becoming the CEO of Groupon to starting his own venture to now becoming a full-time content creator. Like we can write an entire book on his journey. But the
Right.
idea of his story, or the essence of the story in this book, is only set on that one single line that he says in his talk, which is about failure. And
Right.
never letting failure kind of bog you down. And that's
Right.
how the edit has also happened, where I've tried to take out parts that kind of carry through the message that the speaker actually wanted to give in their talk, and doesn't dilute that by adding too many more details about other things as well. But
Right.
that being said, even in my case, I think the restriction was also from the publisher's end. But our goal is to eventually, actually, like, each speaker can carry a book
Right.
on their own, from the kind of
Right. Exactly.
like
Exactly.
experience they've had. And even if it's like, just to give you an example of like Amruta Suresh, who's a transgender, who's also featured. Now she has a journey before Josh, then she has a journey after Josh, after giving a talk. So she was going through a lot of hardship before she came on our platform. She wasn't getting the kind of job that she wanted to.
Right.
Obviously, discrimination was there and prevalent. And when her talk went viral, now she's literally like, a public person. There is a movie coming out going to be based on her life. And there's
Right.
just so much that's happened after that. Actually, that entire piece can be a journey in its own self in the form
Right.
of a book. Uh,
Right.
but yeah, so there's just too much to condense. What I've tried to do is really stick to what the speaker wanted to say and what they wanted to leave the viewer and reader with,
Right.
and let that be the hero in each story.
Right. And it's quite. I mean, I find it, like, as you mentioned, the circle of life, that you wanted to be a chief editor of a magazine and you ended up editing
Yeah.
this book. I mean, it's kind of really cool how that happened. But Supriya, at so this often happens, right? What I personally have seen, like, a lot of people, they excel at one particular form of narration, but they don't really they aren't particularly good at the other one, right? So someone might be a great writer but not a great speaker, or vice versa. So at any point of time, did you like end up ghost writing some of these stories, like, based on, I mean, obviously, like, taking transcripts and then converting them into narrated experiences, or were these just like purely written by people themselves and then just simply edited by you?
Yeah. So most of the stories that are featured, other than maybe two or three, which are different from the talk. So these are essentially like the transcripts of the talk. Plus, we've tried to kind of keep them up to date with what's happened
Right.
with the speaker. Like some speakers have moved, in different roles or organizations, etc. And the idea has just been to keep it to date. But it's more like, I would say that 75% of it is actually the speaker and their narration, and it's just a third point of view on it. And I mean, to your earlier question and referring, right? Like, I don't think I could ever be a good writer. But I love collecting different people's stories. And I think, like, so imagine, right? Like I told you, my dream was to become a chief editor at one point of time. It was
Right.
never to be an author. And the chief editor part was really there because, like, I was the chief editor of our school magazine as well, and I loved reading through what other people brought to the table and just being able to
Right.
push that out and present that in the best manner. And even in Josh, it's essentially the speakers and their stories and their narration. It's just told in a different form on our format.
Right.
But we are not changing the speaker's story. We are not, writing their journey for them. It's literally them saying it in the purest form. And that's kind of like the depiction of the book as well.
Right. Right. No, and it's quite interesting. I mean, I would like to know a bit more about this. Like, why do you think you won't make a good author? Is there, I don't know, is there a bad experience associated with? You don't have to talk about it,
No.
but just
No, I don't know actually. I mean, I may be able to do it, but I think my interest is lies much more in telling everyone else's story in its truest form, without
right,
kind of like altering it, changing it, trying to put a biased
right,
view.
right,
So that's, I think, one of the reasons where I feel that I would make for someone
right.
who's good at compilation, good at editing and presentation, as opposed to someone who has to write someone else's story or journey from scratch.
No,
But yeah.
and it completely reflects in your work. I mean, Josh literally boils down to what you just spoke about, like compiling stories of people who you think are interesting and just putting them out there in the right format. But
Yeah.
like, so let me just take a step back from the editing process and like focus on you as like as a reader, right? So you mentioned you love to read. Do you how much of your energies that have come from you as a reader, right, over the years that you would have read different books, influenced your editing style or the way you were writing? Like, just to give it a bit more context, right, I think readers often have this chip on their shoulder about having read better books, or there are certain that you always kind of tend to value certain authors over the other, which is again a classist bias in itself.
Hmm.
But was that subconsciously ever something that played on your head that maybe I should try and be more verbose with this, or maybe make the language a little bit more literary, or should I rather just go the other way around and be more massy? I know. Were these kind of
Yeah.
things that you picked up as a reader and tried to put them into your editing skills?
Yeah. So I think, the one thing that sort of remained with me throughout was the fact that who's eventually going to read this book. And I guess for us, it's the same person or a similar person who's watching a talk as well, who's interested in stories like this, who would be, in the age group of, say, 16, 17, going up to maybe 28.
Right.
And a lot of people who even write it to us are people who are, from smaller towns and cities in India, who speak maybe super simple English. And that's what I've kind of tried to carry through, that this isn't something that's extremely verbose. There are no words that you may not know the meaning of, or, even if a speaker has said something that may be a little too difficult to comprehend, I've tried to use a substitute which is simpler, so that even like in terms of people who are coming from smaller towns and cities, who are watching these speakers on Josh and want to take a part of them home, there isn't any kind of change there. And it appeals to everyone. And in terms of me as a person, like I have been a big fan of, like I don't know if you guys know the Reader's Digest magazine, but that is
I'm
something that
sorry.
I've
I'm
grown up
sorry.
with, like
I'm
reading
sorry. I'm
stories
sorry,
from the
Supriya.
readers. Yeah.
Supriya, I'm sorry. Your voice lagged in the middle, so I think it just went. I don't know if you guys are, and then your audio and video paused.
Oh,
So
sorry.
if you could
Yeah.
just repeat that, please.
Something.
Sorry.
Yeah, something. I don't know if you're familiar with Reader's Digest, like the magazine that used to come. I mean, it still does.
Yeah.
But basically, like I was a big buff. And it's strange because a lot of the books that I picked up early on were the books that my mom used to read. And she used to love reading the Reader's Digest, and she used to love reading the Chicken Soup series,
Right.
Chicken Soup for the Soul, right? So I don't know what it is, but a lot of, like, my first kind of impression of third person storytelling or compilation comes from these books and these magazines.
Right.
And they've always been presented in a very very simple form. There is a structure that's there, and I think maybe subconsciously that's there,
Right.
even in the way that I write today, because that's kind of like the first touch point that I have had with compilations, or
Right.
like stories put together. And I think, like, even when I kind of look back and when I reread it, I felt like I was the same person who was sitting maybe in class 6 or 7, and reading these
Right.
books, sometimes hiding away from my mom because she didn't want me to read all the kind of content that there was. And a similar structure has been put in putting these stories out as well.
Right. Right. Okay. So, Supriya, I mean, it's great to know. Like, and I think most people like around our age bracket like have had the opportunity, and like I think it's great that all of us grew up on Reader's Digest. Like, I think everyone's had their own brush with it. And but you're one of the first
Yeah.
few people to have mentioned Chicken Soup for the Soul on the podcast, because I remember I had when I was about 12. Okay. My one of my uncles gifted me a book of like Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, and I remember waiting like, so I was morally conflicted about whether I should read it or not, because I'm 12 and not a teenager. So I literally waited,
Yeah.
held on to the book till my 13th birthday to read for it. But so this actually brings me to a very, I mean, it's sort of a cliched question, but I try and not to ask it in that sense, because obviously I'm not going to ask you about your favorite book, because it's, I think, sacrilegious to ask a reader for their favorite book or
Yeah.
like their top 5 books. But then I would much rather know about what books impacted you and changed you as a person, like things that something that you read and it actually altered the way you are going about life or the way you're thinking about life or just change your approach about things, like those, what were these
Yeah.
hard hitting books for you, if there were any?
Yeah. So I think, at every age group, there have been certain books that have kind of changed my thought process, or who I was as a person and what I was fascinated by and enamored by, etc. Right? Like starting off with Roald Dahl, maybe because I was completely immersed in that as a young person, and
Right,
then obviously going through the entire aspect of even say the Mallory Tars series. That's, I remember class
right,
5 and 6, and I remember being crazy about it. And then to Harry Potter, and then my journey from moving from fiction to non-fiction, and now only reading non-fiction. So
yeah,
I think there have been too many, but maybe in the last 2 to 3 years, or maybe in the last 4 years, especially because I decided to take up entrepreneurship. There are one or two books that really shook me to the core. Like one of them is called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, and I think that just completely changed me as a person. And the thing with nonfiction now, and why I kind of like just tend to lean towards nonfiction, is because it's almost like you're living the life of the author or the writer. And most of these people are, like, the books that I'm reading are successful business owners, and just a reflection of who we can be
right,
told through their story, is something that really, really fascinates me. So it's almost like I'm in a stage where now each book has a very, very different kind of an impact, and I'm just trying to kind of like keep my identity intact in the middle and not get swayed too much by what the
right,
authors have said.
right,
But yeah, I think the hard thing about Hard Things was like it still continues to remain one book that I keep going back to.
right, right. The hard thing about hard things. That's an interesting thing because the thing about hard hitting books is I think most people need those kind of books in their lives. I mean, you need all sorts of books in your life, but that's why I ask this question to people who come on the podcast because it helps readers kind of select better books to read. But again, a very interesting thing that you pointed out that you've completely shifted to non-fiction and investing. Most people try to like just have a mix of the two. Why is it that you've excluded fiction, or is it just like a subconscious choice that right now you just want to read non-fiction and then maybe sometime later
Yeah,
you
I think it's also like I said, right? Like the journey and the time that you are in life depends, and kind of like also makes you want to read different things and all of that. I think when I just started reading nonfiction, maybe about 5 years back, when I kind of was maybe doing close to 2 or 3 books a month, and I'm just in it now, so I'm also trying to pull myself back up, and start reading diverse categories as well. But I think it's just a phase. I
okay,
think it's a phase where I'm trying to learn more about people and what they are doing and how they are living their life, or how are they implementing their learnings in their work, and that's why this tilt, and liking towards all of that. But I am looking forward to maybe in a year or two moving back uh, to fiction as well.
yeah, you should. I mean, I'm glad to hear
Mm.
that it's a phase because personally, like I've always felt it. So like I found this sometimes to be a thing among people that they dismiss fiction as something that isn't adding anything to their lives. Like, oh, you're reading a story. But like I very strongly disagree with that opinion. That because fiction in itself is enhances a lot of value in a
Absolutely.
person's life, right? And it adds a lot more to their uh, narration. But so Supriya, now that we've spoken about the book and everything, what's next for you? What's happening? Like what you just told us, you've shifted to a new city. What is Josh like? Where's Josh heading now? Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so so we started Josh when we were in college, and we've grown it to be this content platform that speaks to people in 8 different languages and inspires them to do something big with their lives. And we're continuing to grow that as Josh Talks. But recently, 1 year ago, we started our own e-learning application called Josh Skills. The goal of which is that once you've seen a speaker and you know the kind of career that you want to go through, there should be a way that somebody can handhold you into teaching you the skills that are required for that career,
Right,
and actually complete the loop of you getting a job via that. And that's where our focus is. We started with teaching spoken English, which again remains the biggest problem faced by our demographic. And yeah, and Bangalore being a city where it's also kind of a shift because we're moving more from like content or media to actually education and technology as well. So yeah, hence the shift to a new city to try and hire a different team here, set up skills, and yeah.
Right. That sounds wonderful, and I really hope that this goes big. But as you mentioned, but coming back towards the end and closing this interview, uh, you mentioned that you were thinking of writing a few more books. So, like, are there any more books down in the pipeline? What are they revolving around? What are Would we
Yeah.
see more content from like written stuff by you, or would you just still be editing? But so it's
So hopefully I will move into a stage where I do get to writing. But I think right now, I mean, like, we have 3,000 speakers and choosing 30 of them doesn't do justice to the
of
others.
course,
So we are looking at, coming up with more volumes which are similar. Maybe we'll
right,
drive them thematically and cover speakers from a particular background or a particular career instead of kind of having a diversified lot across the book. The second thing is that what's super interesting and what we've come across like in our journey is the stories of our users, and I think that's something that I personally want to take time out, and maybe that's something that I'm going to write about. But a lot is misunderstood about people who we refer to as Bharat, or people who are living in tier 3, tier 4 towns who don't speak in English and don't kind of have the privilege that we do.
right,
And after having like worked with them for 6 years, and them being viewers and then them being people who are learning English with us, there's just so much more to Bharat than we know.
right.
And that's something that I'm really kind of passionate about, and I want to write about eventually. And yeah.
And that's such a fascinating area that you've picked up, because I think, as you mentioned, right, like I think most of us come from tier one, tier two cities with a certain level of privilege built into it. Every one of us has a different kind of privilege, but there is that certain common denominator of privilege there, right? And understanding this, what our country actually conspires, consists of, like, if you look at it, like urban areas probably make up just like barely 5 to 10% of our population, and the rest are
Absolutely.
like rural
Yeah.
areas. So like getting those stories out is like far more important, and it's just far more interesting, and actually after a point of time important from a societal point of view, just in terms of bringing us together as one cohesive element. So it's great to know that you are working on this. But yeah, that brings us to the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Supriya, for joining us. This was lovely. And the book in itself is a very inspirational product. I think, I mean, apart from your talks, I think this is a book that should be on every bedside, I think. So that's the best compliment I
Thank
can
you.
probably pass on to you right now.
No, thank you so much. This has been a lot of fun. And
Right.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed that podcast, please subscribe to the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. Like this video, share, subscribe, and spread the word among all your friends and all fellow bibliophiles who you think might enjoy such further conversation with authors or poets about their thoughts and their writing process. Also, check us out on Instagram at the rate Kitabi Karwan, where we post about books, our experiences reading them, talking to authors, having live sessions, and a lot more stuff which any bibliophile would enjoy. Thank you so much for listening.